Are you financially prepared to care for your aging parents? One unexpected health event and their entire savings could disappear. But there is a better way, so let me show you how. Today, you're going to learn about practical, real-world strategies to plan for long-term care for your parents without draining their assets or yours. At Smith Barid, we've helped families preserve wealth and peace of mind by helping families to address the complicated questions around long-term care. We have a unique perspective as both attorneys and financial advisors. We understand both the legal and financial aspects of planning for care. This isn't theory. This is what we do every day. I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith and financial advisor with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the estate planning guys. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what care options exist, what they cost, and how to protect your family's future. So let's start at the start. The first thing you need when you're thinking about your parents' care is an understanding of what level of care they need, both now and in the future. Are they fully independent? Do they need occasional help? Or are we looking at more comprehensive care? So are they at a nursing level of care? Are they able to go to independent living? Do they need assisted living? And let me ask you a question. Do you know what type of care your parents might need in 5 years? Most people don't. And that's kind of where mistakes begin to happen. So for example, if your parents are in early stage dementia now, then planning for memory care now rather than just reacting to it later can save tens of thousands of dollars and tons of stress. You know, there's a personal aspect of that for me. My father suffers with Alzheimer's at this point, and luckily we did all the planning ahead of time. So it's certainly a terrible experience to go through to have a parent suffer with dementia like that. But because we did the planning ahead of time, we're not stressed about how it's going to be paid for or any of the legal aspects of, taking care of him. So we can just focus on, what are his needs and making sure those are met. So it's important to, think in advance, like where are we going to be 5 years down the road? And one of the great ways you can do that is to have a care needs assessment done and to talk with a geriatric care manager. They've renamed that now. It's called an aging life care specialist. But have a meeting with an aging life care specialist, have them do an evaluation and talk about, where things may go in the future and, what kind of care your parents are going to need. The second thing you need to do is understand what the care options are and the price tags. So understand that there are different types of care available and they have different costs. They typically fall into 4 general categories. So the first thing we have is home care. That's where the patient, your parent, is living at home and someone's coming into the home and providing care for them in the home. And that can range from, just coming in and preparing meals, doing some light housekeeping, all the way up to skilled nursing, provided there in the home. The second type of care that we need to talk about is assisted living. So assisted living, I kind of think about that as like apartment living for seniors who need a little bit of help with things. So that could include meals. That typically includes somebody coming in and doing housekeeping, and then having access to a nurse if needed, but not round-the-clock care, if you will. And assisted living is kind of one step up from the lowest category of care, which is independent living. And independent living is really just a facility or community where seniors are living, and they're in their own apartment, but they have things like maybe a call button so they could call for help if they needed. So, and then there may be a check-in system where every morning they're going to check in with the main facility and let them know that they're okay, they're doing fine. All the lawn care, if it's a freestanding home, all the lawn care is included, all the care for the property. It's a way to step back from the day-to-day need to care for a home and the property and have somebody take care of those things for you, to, in some facilities, have access to medical care if you need it, but not somebody that's watching over you, making sure that you're okay on a daily basis. So that's why it's called independent living. We've talked about assisted living. There's also something called memory care. That is a type of assisted living. It is for people who are suffering with dementia or some sort of cognitive impairment, and that typically includes meals. There's some nursing staff available to assist, and then there are CNA, certified nursing assistants, who can help patients, get around, take care of their day to day. They will come and do things like dress a memory care patient, make sure they can, get into a wheelchair if they're wheelchair bound. There's sometimes activities included. So you may have an activities director at the facility who would do things like take the memory care patients to a local park, for example. But memory care is specifically geared for people who have some sort of cognitive impairment. And then the highest level of care is nursing home care. That is where you are not able to ambulate on your own, so you can't walk down the hall. And there's a nurse who's always on duty. They can administer medications. They can, check vitals, all those sorts of things, and call in a doctor if needed. And that can range from, sometimes folks are still able to get around in a wheelchair. They can maybe walk with a walker, some, all the way to folks who are bedridden and can't get out of bed at all. So that's what nursing home level care is. Let's talk a little about the cost. And the cost can vary widely nationwide. There is an annual survey put out by Genworth that gives a lot of great detailed information on cost. So I'm just going to talk in general terms. Home care is generally $20 to $30 an hour. So if you think about that, if you've got people coming in 24/7, that can get super expensive. Everybody wants to age at home. Everybody wants to take care of their parents at home. But if you aren't trained to provide the care and you need to bring somebody in to provide that care, it can get very expensive very quickly. So assisted living is generally about $4,000 to $6,000 a month. Memory care, $6,000 to $8,000 a month. And then you've got nursing home care, and that's going to range, $8,000 to $9,000 a month. So around $100,000 a year for that kind of nursing home care. And, this is one of the things that people really don't understand about long-term care, is that it's very, very expensive. And if you don't plan ahead, then your family may be forced into the most expensive options without, really any flexibility and difficulty in paying for that. So there's several ways you can pay. Let's talk about what those are in a broad sense. There's 3 categories. The first one is you can private pay, which means you're just going to pay out of your pocket, and at a rate of $100,000 a year for nursing home care. That can really drain, your life savings pretty quickly. So private pay is number one. The second way you can pay for long-term care is with long-term care insurance. And there are different types of policies available to help pay for long-term care. There's traditional long-term care insurance, which, think about that kind of like health insurance or car insurance. You pay premiums every month, and then if you use the policy, they'll cover expenses for you. But if you don't use the policy, then all those premiums you paid kind of just go up in smoke. So that's one of the reasons that people have kind of objected to long-term care insurance over the years. And the other thing to know about traditional long-term care insurance is there are very few companies that provide it any longer. In the early days of long-term care insurance, traditional policies, the insurance companies did not understand the scope of the cost of what this was going to be. And so when they did the underwriting for that, they didn't get it quite right. And unfortunately, they ran into a situation as claims started to come in where they couldn't pay all the claims, and some of those companies ended up going into receivership and going out of business. So there are a few carriers left that provide traditional long-term care insurance, but not a lot. So the alternative to that, that's become the more prevalent type of long-term care insurance, is a life insurance policy with a long-term care benefit. And the way those work is that you essentially put money into a bucket, you buy life insurance with it, and then it'll have a rider, or there's different ways those policies can be structured. But if you need that money for long-term care, you can use that money in that policy to pay for long-term care. And if you don't, then there's a life insurance benefit for your family when you pass away. So it's, I think, arguably better than the old traditional use it or lose it type of policy. The only thing about it is that it's typically only to provide a limited number of years of coverage. So generally it's around 3 years, which is the expected life expectancy once someone goes into a nursing facility. So traditional long-term care insurance can be, the coverage can be better, but it's more expensive. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So a lot of people now are purchasing these hybrid policies, we call them, with life insurance and long-term care rider or benefit. Now, the third way you can pay for long-term care is with government benefits. And there are two programs that are available to help pay for long-term care. The first one is a benefit called Veterans Aid and Attendance, and that is for veterans and their spouses. The full explanation of it is beyond the scope of this video, but if you're interested in learning more about that, you can just Google Veterans Aid and Attendance and you'll find all the information you need. It does have a look back period. There are income and asset requirements. So there's a certain level at which if you have more income than that or more assets than that, you can't qualify for it. And they, just like Medicaid, they have a look back period. So if you transfer assets, you have to wait at least 3 years before you apply for it. It is a great benefit. It does not pay as much as the last benefit we're going to talk about, which is Medicaid, but just know that that VA benefit is out there if you were an active duty veteran who served during a period of war. Now, the other government benefit that's available to help pay for long-term care is called Medicaid. And Medicaid is an interesting animal. It is federal law with a state overlay, basically. So there's a basic federal structure to Medicaid, and then the money is given to the states to administer. And so they come up with their own rules about how they're going to administer that in their state. So there can be wide differences between how Medicaid works in one state and another state. The thing to know about Medicaid is there are a couple of things to know. The first one is that there are asset and income limits. You can have no more than $2,000 in assets to qualify for Medicaid. And the second thing to know is that there's a look back period when you apply. So if you transfer assets, you got to wait at least 5 years before you can qualify for Medicaid. We can go into more detail if you guys are interested on Medicaid in other videos, and we do have other videos on it. But if you want to know more about Medicaid, just drop a comment in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to make a video about Medicaid specifically and getting into a little more of the detail on that. And, one last thing I want to talk about is that if we want to plan for Medicaid or VA benefits, we can use irrevocable trust to do that. And the great thing about that is we can protect your assets and prepare for future needs with those irrevocable trusts. So if your concern is protecting assets for your family after you're gone, we can do that planning with an irrevocable trust, possibly a long-term care insurance policy that's inside the trust, one of those life insurance policies. It's a great way to plan, but you got to do it now. You can't wait until you need to go into the nursing home to do that planning. You got to do it in advance. So those are the options to pay for long-term care. And the thing that, you should keep in mind is it's not a requirement that you go broke to get long-term care. You just got to plan ahead for it. One of our clients transferred assets into a trust 5 years before they needed care, and they became Medicaid eligible. So Medicaid ended up paying for their care, and that saved them over $200,000. So if you do the planning, you do it in advance, it won't be a problem for you and your family. And don't wait for a crisis. Bring everybody to the table now. So parents, siblings, spouses, this really promotes transparency and it avoids tension in the family, when everything starts to get serious. And it, ensures that everybody knows what the plan is. And the last thing I would say about planning for long-term care is consult with a professional. Care planning is very personal. Your individual circumstances are going to impact what the available options are and how they're going to work. It's complex. And if you get it wrong, it can be very costly. So I would suggest having an aging life care specialist to help you determine what type of care is going to be needed, and then working with an elder law attorney and a financial advisor to put the legal and financial pieces in place. If you want a cleared roadmap to get started, then just grab our free care planning guide. There's a link in the description to our resources page, and you'll find it there. And it's going to help you with the key questions to ask. To wrap up, start by assessing your parents' care needs using an aging life care specialist. Understand the full range of care options. Use financial tools like insurance, VA benefits, Medicaid planning, and trusts. And involve your family. Don't do it alone. And last thing is get expert advice. If you're wondering what long-term care might really cost, don't miss our next video, the shocking reality of nursing home costs that you need to know. It's an eye-opener.